Hello.
Hi, Mario. Yudalid.
Mhm.
Ashoichet b'Shabbos of Yom Kippurim. You're not allowed to shecht on Shabbos. You can't make a wound. If you make a, you're chayiv skila. Aval bishum is chayiv b'nafel. Even though he's going to be put to death by Bezdin, shchita also kosher. The meat is kosher. Rav Unadarsh chiyaber of mishmeid Rav asur ba'ila liyom, but you can't eat it till Shabbos is over. V'nazbin charvi lemeimar. The Gemara wanted to explain why Rabbi Yehuda, because it's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Hey, Rabbi Yehuda, which Rabbi Yehuda? Rav Abba. Rabbi Yehuda da Achonehi. It's Rabbi Yehuda who holds that unless something is prepared from Erev Ben Hashmashos before Shabbos, then it's muktzah and can't be used on Shabbos. It's not. We're on Yud Dalid, the Gemara. If you have gourds that have been harvested from Erev Shabbos, but they're not cut up, you can cut them up so dogs can eat them, or we can eat them. Let's say an animal died without shechita, and the animal was alive when Shabbos started. You're allowed to cut it up to have the dogs eat it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, if the animal had not died from Erev Shabbos, then it's muktzah for the whole Shabbos. Well, since it wasn't prepared for Shabbos use, Asura, Chanami, here too, when you slaughtered a live animal on Shabbos, it went into Shabbos not prepared to be used as food. Kivan lo yiskim esmol Asura, you wouldn't be able to eat it on Shabbos. Armle by me dummy. There's no comparison. Hasam, by the live animal, mikar muchan lo adam. If you would shecht it, a human being could eat it. Hashta muchan leklavim. But now it changed because previously was even a human would eat it. You're not going to shecht a live animal just to feed it to dogs. Now it's only accessible to dogs. So I understand why it's muktzah. The kind of use that you were going to use for this changed. But by a animal that was shech, a live animal was live when Shabbos started. Now it's shechted. It's also could be eaten by a human being. So why should it be muktzah? So Rav Abba says, a live animal is not categorized as waiting to be eaten. You can't eat it. It's got to be shechted. A live animal can be used for breeding to make other animals. But for food, it would be considered muktzah. Well, says the Gemara, you're allowed to shecht an animal on yonta for food. The question is, if an animal, while it's live, is not considered mukhan for human consumption, it should be muktzah, not be able to be shechted on yontif. So Rabbi explained, a live animal is multi-purpose. It can be used for breeding, but it can also be used to shecht and then eat it. So when you shecht it on yontif, huver de lachilo medis. There's retroactive breira that all along it was meant for eating, and therefore it was not muktzah when yontif started. Now lo nishchata, if the yontif goes by and you didn't shecht it, then it's clear huver de lagadalo medis. It's retroactively understood that it was meant for breeding, and it would be muktzah. But so that applies. That's why you can shecht something on yontif. However, haleslein Rabbi Yehuda breira. That can't work because Rabbi Yehuda certainly allows you to shecht on yontif, but he doesn't hold of breira. How can you understand that? How do you know that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of breira? Minolo. Inami, maybe you'll say Miditanya. Halokech yain benakus. You buy wine from the Shomronim. We know who they are. We don't drink their wine. They don't give meiser, so you can't drink the wine without giving meiser. Oimer, you say shnei lugin shani osid la'afrish, 2 out of 100. If you have 100 lugin, so 1/50th is truma, arein truma. And then you say asara maser rishon, 10 that in the future I will donate as meiser will be meiser rishon. You're left with 90. Tisha meiser sheni will be meiser umechel, and then he transfers the kedusha of the meiser sheni to money. V'shloise miyad, you can drink it right away, and that way there's no problem with drinking wine that belongs to a kusi. As later on, you got to be careful to leave enough wine in the barrel to separate these trumas. Divrei Rab Meir, because he is going to hold brera that when you give it, it's retroactively what I designated. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon Oisrim, because they don't hold of retroactive brera. So you see, how can you say Rabbi Yehuda will say the concept of brera by Yontif if he doesn't hold of brera? So the Gemara will say here now that it's not so. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't completely not hold of brera. Hasam, there's a problem with the wine. What do you mean? What if the barrel eventually breaks and all the wine drains before, and you've drunk this wine and you never were able to separate the Truma and Meiser? You're going to end up drinking Tevel retroactively. So Rab Meir is not concerned. Fine, we're not concerned about that. So therefore, that's the reason why Rabbi Yehuda argues, but not because of Breira. Rather, the Gemara finds another source for why Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold the Breira. Elam Tani Ayo. The Tani Ayo, Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, Ein Adam Masal Shed Varm Ke'echad. You can't make a conditional statement on two things. For example, you want to set up an Eruv because your Rebbe is going to come, you can't go more than 2,000 amas. So you go 2,000 amas in one direction, you put some food down there, Erev Shabbos, and that allows him to go another 2,000 amas. But you can't put it on both sides of town. You can't make a conditional statement on two things at the same time. Elin Bachacham Mizrach says, if the Talmid Chacham, my Rebbe comes from the east, they ruve Mizrach. The Meir will be in the east. L'mayrev, they ruve L'mayrev. If he comes in the west, it'll be but Lakad lo. If he talks about two different Talmid Chachamim, and they should both work, Rabbi Yehuda rejects the use of Breira. Bavinamba. Ma'ishal Lakad lo. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow doing in both places the Ein Breira. Well, Mizrach Umarv Nami Ein Breira. You're going to have to use Breira when he eventually shows up and he says, oh, it's retroactively, that's the side I wanted to place all along. Vam Rav Yochanan Kvar B'Chacham. You don't even need Breira because the Talmid Chacham had already come Erev Shabbos. So it's not a case of Breira. So Rababa's concept of eating Yontif, if Rabbi Yehuda doesn't know the Breira, we need to come up with a different understanding. Elam Rav Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda did Kalim you. It's regarding Rabbi Yehuda with Kalim. It's not. Kol HaKalim Anitolim b'Shabbos. Kalim that can be moved on Shabbos. So Shivreim Nitolim. If they get broken, you can also move them. As long as the broken pieces can also do a certain malacha, like they can store something, they can protect something. To cover a jar, shivrei skuchis, or pieces of glass, to cover a flask. They've got to be able to do a little bit of The original kli had a certain malacha. This broken piece has to be able to do the original malacha. For example, shivra arev l'tzok and mikvah. Like the original bowl was a container, and now you can put a little cereal in it. Shivra eschuchis l'tzok l'tzok and shemen. Or you can put a little oil in it. So if it doesn't have its original use, you can't use it. Otherwise, it's muchta. Meim lachtonin. It's got to be part of the original usage. Meim lachacheres lo. Just because it can be used for something, that's not enough. Since when Erev Shabbos came, this kli was not particularly prepared for this type of work, hasiri, hachanami. So when meat was slaughtered on Shabbos, it's prohibited on Shabbos for the same reason. When a kli before it was broken was a kli, now it's a broken kli. And therefore you have a new problem. This new broken piece is a new creation, and you have like an egg born on Shabbos, v'asr. Hacha, when you have the live animal, mikara uchla v'soifechel. Initially, it was going to be food eventually, and at the end it was food. Oichla deifrisu. It's when you shecht an animal, it becomes like regular food. If you have food that got separated from other food, it's okay. It's not considered noilet. Where do you see this? It's not. You cannot squeeze fruits on Shabbos to get juice out of them. However, if the juice flows by itself, it's also prohibited. This is rabbinic, in order as a gzeira. If the fruits were not meant for beverage, but for eating, then ayotzim and mutter. Things that flowed naturally from them, you can drink. Now, if the fruits, im lamashkin, if they are there for their juice, ayotzim and osir, then something that comes out of them without squeezing, you can't use. So, you see, though, Rabbi Yehuda in some cases allow using the fluid, even though this was newly created on Shabbos. So he doesn't always say noilet. And therefore, when you shecht, also you shouldn't say noilet. So, lavit marala, perhaps on our Mishnah, Amir Amar Shmuel, moidai Rabbi Yehuda l'chachomim, if you have baskets of olives and grapes, and you have juice flowing from them on their own without, Rav Yehuda is like an individual fruit, but most people squeeze olives and grapes. So, and the fact that they've been set aside for eating doesn't remove the fear that people will come to squeeze them. Since normally these are meant for squeezing, yoiv daite, you still have it in your mind to use it for that purpose. Since the live animal normally is set aside for shchita, yoiv daite, he has his mind on it. And therefore, you might be worried that a guy's going to shecht it on Shabbos. So it's still a muktzah problem. So the Gemara says, Midahu time el Rav. That only works for Rav. Because Amar Rav Chalokay Rabbi Yehuda. Afilu b'sayis zeisim vanovim. But Rav said that Rabbi Yehuda argues with the Chachamim and allows you to use juice that flows out of baskets of olives and grapes. So that the way you explain the pshat is not correct. We're trying to find why does Rabbi Yehuda prohibit you from using the shechted meat on Shabbos? It's from the Shabbat lighting neiros on Shabbos, the Tanya. V'tatlin ner chadash. Avalo yasham. Div Rabbi Yehuda. A new candelabra can be moved on Shabbos. It's never been used before. It has never been lit. It's not dirty. You could store things there. Now, a nair that's been used is got dirt on it, so it's muktzah machmes mius. We haven't learned that in muktzah yet. It's a different type of muktzah because it's disgusting. So a old nair is muktzah because it has no permissible use on Shabbos. So a live animal also could be considered muktzah because it has no permitted use on Shabbos. So if someone shechts it later on, you still can't use it until Shabbos is over. We understand Rabbi Yehuda holds of this concept. Muktzas machmas isra mishamisle. Have we heard that muktzah, because something is a prohibited thing, have we ever heard that he considers that to be muktzah? Just because you hold of muktzah machmas mius doesn't mean you agree that there's muktzah machmas an isser, like by an animal, where it might be muktzah because a person might come to shecht it. So the Gemara wants to know, do we know that Rabbi Yehuda holds that muktzah machmas isser is a real thing? The Gemara says in. This non-Rabbi Yehuda, we're going to get a proof from Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to learn at 5 o'clock.
Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chavi.
Shkoyach.